My name is Ahmed Youssef. I'm a double board certified internal medicine pediatrics doctor focused primarily in the ICU. I come from Arkansas. I may have a hard time doing this. I went to Gaza about 3 weeks ago, came back after being there for about 3 weeks. I primarily worked in the ICU and in the emergency room in Al-Aqsa Hospital. I thought, I'm not a politician and I'm not a military strategist, but the moment we drove through Rafah with a UN convoy towards the middle area where we were going to be stationed, it became clear to me that what I was seeing was unfathomable. And at the same time, I had a small hope that when the doors are open and the ceasefire is had, that when you all are allowed back in there, that it doesn't require a military strategist to realize what they're doing. They're making Gaza unlivable. They've destroyed the water infrastructure, and so we were seeing kids die of diarrheal illness. They prevented all medical supplies in, and I can tell that by firsthand witness, not by hearsay. They refused me the medical supplies that I was able to gather over months from wonderful people in Arkansas, things like endotracheal tubes and Foley catheters, things like antibiotics and sedative medications that were denied at the border. Firsthand experience. They do not allow medical supplies into children that are dying. And when we got to the hospital, everything I saw on TikTok and Instagram and all the Telegram, all the stuff that we had from alternative media, because you can't be there, it was 100 times worse than I could have ever imagined. I have no ties to Gaza. I'm not from there. I have no blood there. But those people treated me better than I deserved as a member of the international community. With no food, they tried to feed me, and they'll tell you the same. With no food, they tried to feed me. And when I asked them what we could do, because there was so little we could do as doctors, they said, just make sure people know we're here.
I've read Marx. I've read Engels. I've read Das Kapital.
The world is run by Trotskyists.
Hardcore Trotskyists.
How great an anti-American Marxist.
They're controlled by Trotskyists, as you put it, and these are the most evil, sick human beings on the face of the planet.
You're listening to the Left Opposition Podcast. I'm Joe here with my buds, Aaron and Chris. We got a nice lean crew tonight. We're like Nirvana or the Police or Blink-182,
Okay. Joe, from now on, anytime you open with a three-piece band reference, you're going to know. Congratulations. We're going out of rotation. You get next week, too.
Hell yeah.
All right. That was good. The Blink-182. For all you, that's now a retro station song now. I feel like I'm going to die. It was on retro it was a throwback now, Blink-182.
Yeah.
I got to second base by listening to Blink-182 at a concert once when I was 16. Now it's in the retro section. So just remember, kids, you might like Wiz Khalifa or Coolio, but someday you're gonna get old like us, and that's the end of it. So all right, that's great.
So you were hanging out behind the club on the weekend?
That's right.
Getting drunk with your best friends.
That was. That's right. I was huffing. I was doing skateboarding tricks, and I was going to change the world and live forever, man, with rock and roll. And it said it was rock and roll. I did not know at the time international socialism was going to be the way to it. So that's why we are here today talking about the best stuff in the world. So
the world was looking up.
It was. I was going to live forever, man. It was great. I was in a band. I played bass, which is like the least technical instrument you need to know how to play.
Oh, yeah.
It's only 4 strings, one at a time, and you'll be okay for a punk band. That's it. Did you have a bass? Congratulations, Chris. You're in our band. That was it. Minimal practice needed.
And then 9/11 happened. And
then goddamn, the fucking CIA got some blowback on us. And now 9/11 happened and it wrecked everything. So, man, I know. I used to be kind of right wing back then, too. That you draw wrong conclusions of what you need to do. So we should talk about our past someday. That'd be a good one. where we came.
You're listening to Two Nice Italian Boys.
Oh, there you go. Hey, welcome
Hey, come
on.
on.
That'll be a reference later. There's a Israeli podcast called Two Nice Jewish Boys who
Oh my God.
talk about
Yeah, I'm like
Gaza.
two 39-year-old boys. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of
right.
a weird title too. Yeah, they don't look like boys anymore, but boy, oh boy, huh? Boy, anyone have any buttons around for those fuckos? Yeah, holy shit, genocide much?
Yeah,
But
we'll talk about that. So yeah, on today's program, we are discussing for some reason Germany has a far right problem.
yeah,
The AfD is on the up and up.
Yeah.
Ostensibly a democratic socialist, AOC has some words to say about Jill Stein existing.
Sure does. Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll get to the main meat and potatoes
Event.
of the episode. The main event is, of course, as always, the genocide in Gaza.
We are going to be discussing that, unfortunately. Yeah, I know.
45 American physicians, surgeons, and nurses release a letter detailing conditions on the ground in Gaza. And I have a talk prepared about what is wrong with the Israeli working class. How come, can there be class lines that can be divided and split and turn against each other? Is the Israeli proletariat capable of revolution? I think we'll talk about that towards the end of the show. So, Chris, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. Oh, and before that, I was going to say that next week as well, we have we're gonna have a guest on from Firebrand talking about the upcoming elections too. So that's our next week. Spoiler. It's going to be awesome. But anyway, yes. So, elections. So, for those of you who don't know, Germany lost the war in 1945 to some people on the right who might be very upset about its outcome. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these people kind of coming back. So I dug up this article. This was put out by the Revolutionary Communists of America, who had a pretty good analysis of it. So here's a few things here that came up. Last Sunday, elections were held in two federal states of Saxony and Thuringia. Good luck on pronouncing it. They were won by the right-wing party, Alternative for Germany, or in German, AfD is their initials. And also, oh God, this other fucking group. The Democratic New Outfit, Alliance Sahara Wagon, I can't, but it's called BSW, a split up from the left party. The BSW is kind of like George Galloway-ish, if you want to put it in some weird context. Like, they're kind of left politically, but they're against like woke, and they don't want to give they're against welfare and stuff like that. Like, but like they want some progressive out. They're a weird group, so fuck them. The reformists and liberals in Germany are beyond the state of panic, but this is the outcome. But this outcome is a measure of their own bankruptcy. The parties of the federal government, Social Democrats, Greens, and liberals, were thoroughly punished for their attacks on working people. The Conservative Christian Democrat, or the CDU, that was Angela Merkel's group, the most important party of capital, was only able to hold on because it was preserved as a lesser evil with the best chance of the AfD. Half of its votes can be attributed to this. If this sounds a bit familiar, like what happened in England with the Labour Party, quote unquote, winning, the same thing. They were just like, well, you guys aren't the bad guys. Or if you're talking about the American context, this is how Joe Biden won the election. You're not those far-right weirdo wackos. You guys won. So that's how the CDU managed to at least not get completely trounced. Reformism and liberalism were massively punished in this election. The so-called political center is collapsing in Germany, just like everywhere else in the world. The basis for this development is the crisis of German capitalism. The economy has not recovered since the coronavirus pandemic. The war in Ukraine and its catastrophic effects highlighted the strategic impasse of German imperialism. The German ruling class and establishment have wound up in this situation because they've openly subordinated themselves to the interests of the United States in the Ukraine war. As a result, they've amputated their access to cheap Russian gas and oil. Production and incoming orders have collapsed in key sectors, mostly in automotive, mechanical engineering, and chemicals. One of their BASF, the largest producer of chemical products, is closing production plants. Decades of austerity and privatization policies by federal and state governments have run Germany's infrastructure and services into the ground, with dilapidated bridges, broken railway lines, and bankrupt hospitals. The housing shortage continues to rise, and the government is not fulfilling its promises on that score either. At the same time, there is no end to warmongering. Hundreds of billions are being channeled into the war in Ukraine, the genocide in Gaza, and the rearmament of the German army. All this money is lacking elsewhere and will be paid for cuts, meaning even worse services and harsher exploitation. And I'll just pause there for a sec. Now, I know this may sound hard to believe, but can you believe that there's a country that funds war and genocide instead of funding things people need? Is that crazy to anybody? Anyone
Can you
here?
imagine?
Can you imagine like shutting down hospitals? Joe and I live here in Massachusetts, so Stewart Medical, which is they own 4 or 5 hospitals in the region. It's a private equity firm that decided, we're going to shut down all the hospitals with like a 20-day notice. So they're being shut down. Like, that's what's happening. The MBTA, our public rail transit that I always talk about, which is failing. It takes a 1 hour trip which what was it? 1 hour trip took me 2.5 hours going into Boston. We aren't funding anything. The situation in Germany is much like, I'm sure, in Canada and United States and elsewhere, where we are funding militarism, war, genocide. In the meantime, things are falling apart here. And meanwhile, you have like the Democrats who are trying to tell us, well, the economy's booming. What are you complaining about? This is the shit we're stuck in. The same cycle of like, well, things are fine. Look at how good Wall Street's doing. And in Germany, like the election. So all the traditional parties, you see like how Democrats lose traditional union voters. Yeah, because the traditional union voters are getting screwed over by capitalism, but they think it's because, migrants are here. That's the whole reason. The same scapegoating goes on amongst the far right in every country here. And then it goes on to this other part. The traditional liberal parties have been organizing these quote unquote democracy demonstrations. The same dumb shit that Biden was trying to run on. We're against January 6th. Same thing. They wanted these campaigns for diversity and democracy, which was supported by bourgeois mouthpieces and together with 700 companies, foundations, universities, and NGOs. And also they're trying to say that the AFD is getting paid by Russia and or China. Shocking. So what's going on too is the working, and this part I like too from the article, the racist campaign by the establishment. The parties in power have been now scapegoating migrants and using attacks on migrants, just like the right would be, just like the Democrats are doing with the border, the whole thing with the border. They didn't, Joe Biden signed into law saying, Trump didn't want to sign the border law that, that would block asylum seekers and shit like that. The liberal parties are doing this stuff and they're not winning. Everyone can tell. The fact also, now a little bit about the AFD, which I think is good because some people, just like people think with Trump, that, they're anti-establishment. If all the liberal parties hate him, therefore they must be good. So this part I liked. Despite its anti-establishment posturing and the attacks it faced from more traditional capitalist parties, the AFD is just as much in favor of austerity, armament, and tax breaks for the rich. It also wants to reach deep into the pockets of the working class in order to pay for the crisis of German capitalism. While its demagogic calculus leads it to reject the Ukrainian war, the AfD is in favor of NATO's 2% target and would like to even exceed it. It has also spoken out in favor of rearming the German army and the special fund that the Green Party established to finance it. Moreover, it stands behind Netanyahu and Israel's genocide in Gaza. In this way, the party is participating in the arms race and imperialist crimes of the West. The AfD also has nothing to offer the masses in terms of social policy apart from agitation against migrants. While it wants to abolish wealth, inheritance, and business taxes, it wants to cut social benefits from the poorest, i.e. reduce the welfare state to benefits to the profits of capital. And the solution right here, which it's a good solution. So far, the anti-AFD protests have been led by hypocrites who have exploited the protest to maintain their own power, while the Greens, the FDP, SDP, and CDU pose, quote, as defenders of democracy. They deliver bombs to Israel and fight Palestinian solidarity with police batons, false accusations of anti-Semitism, and smear campaigns. The AFD is also joining in with these attacks. Our task is not to, quote, save democracy together with liberals who ultimately defend the same system as the right wing. We say down with the AFD, but at the same time, down with the establishment parties, bourgeois rule, and capitalism. We are in favor of expropriating the banks and corporations and managing them in democratically planned economy so we can halt deindustrialization, raise wages, fund public services, and to solve the housing question. Only in this way can we finally get to grips with the major problem of climate change, as well as putting an end to imperialism and war. Banger of an article.
Who wrote that? Was that
That's Revolutionary Communists of America, or
okay.
the RCI put that out. Yeah, the same situation. Capitalism is in crisis everywhere right now. We're seeing, like I said, the center is no longer working anymore. You see these weak ass liberals like, or centrists like, well, you guys are too far on the left and right. Like, no, we are in a severe crisis right now. Life expectancy is going down. People are not, millennials are not saving up for retirement. They're not having kids. They're not buying homes. They're trying to cut everything out of their goddamn budget just to get by, and it's still getting worse and worse. Yeah. Every job is not keeping up. Every raise you get is going to be eaten up by inflation because corporations want to make record profits off of us. So
yeah,
I think
there's a lot of like fat and happy, like professional managerial class people who just don't get it. Like, why are you so angry? Like, why do you want to burn it all down? Like, and then plenty of just, scared working class people too. And it's like, I think there's a lot of that denial, and there's also a lot of just, I don't know, what other option do we have? And it's like, what, like, we're not like special people who like can't do a revolution. You know what I mean? It's like, I think people have some idea that's like, no, that's like other places, or like something that happens in history books,
France,
and it's
or
like
something. Yeah,
right. And it's like, you're not like some special person outside of history and human events. Like, you can turn on this fucking system too.
Yeah. No, don't forget, ContraPoints. Is it ContraPoints?
Which one is that? I know ContraPoint. I know of that.
Yeah, the YouTube.
The Natalie person.
Natalie Wynn, yeah.
Yeah. They said something like the Bolshevik Revolution happened out of envy. They were envious of the ruling class.
Oh God, they are.
Yeah, no, that's why people turn. But
yeah,
we're not jealous.
Envious of all that food you get to eat.
No,
yeah.
we're not. Yeah, it's like we're not jealous.
Whatever his name.
Yeah, they were actually jealous. They weren't dying in a trench in Verdun anywhere. Why weren't they getting gas grenades thrown at them when they cough out their lungs? Because they're just jealous they're not on the front lines.
It's more watering down and distorting history, like you said, Joe. Like trying to convince us that we are outside of history, right? We're at the end of history, as Fukuyama said.
Yeah.
And historical factors affect all of us. Just this week, a worker in Canada approached the Prime Minister Trudeau, and Trudeau was like, "Hey, we got donuts over here. Why don't you come on over here?" He was a union worker, and he's like, "I am taxed to shit in this country, and I don't have a doctor. What's that about?" Right? I think it's a perfectly fair question.
Yeah.
And then of course liberals on social media like to point out, it's like, well, healthcare is actually a provincial issue.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Why tell a politician?
Yeah, you gotta keep dodging those bullets, man. So like, yeah, let's say
it's always a technicality with those people. Oh well, technically, shut up.
Here in Ontario, they just opened up this week. We now have beer and liquor in convenience stores.
Praise the Lord. That's
we're
awesome.
One of the last province to do it. It was done because our liquor control board, the store that sells liquor almost exclusively, is all unionized workers, Ontario, like government employees. So this was done to undermine those workers. It cost $1 billion taxpayer dollars to break those contracts. And we have an out of control encampment problem. Rents are insane. I'm sure they're going up everywhere else, but again, our premier Doug Ford got rid of rent control in 2018. So anything built after 2018 does not have rent control. Renovictions are up, and that's where landlord will ask you to vacate a property so they can renovate. And in theory, you're supposed to be able to move back in, but then they just put the unit up for rent at like twice the price, and people have been left out in the dark. And it's gone up, like, I'm not even joking, the number is something like 984%. We keep
it's bad.
And so there's every single public park in Ontario has homeless people camping in it because there's nowhere to go and there is no help coming, and they keep giving our money away to corporations to undermine striking workers, and then they have the convenient boogeyman of homeless people and immigrants wrecking our society.
Right. Tax cuts don't pay for themselves, like, come on. I mean, how else? I mean, also what I read today that Canada's sending that 80,000 small arms weapons over to Ukraine as well.
Yeah,
More,
no,
like,
that's absolutely a priority, of course.
Yeah,
right.
that's going so
Imperialism
well.
isn't free, folks. I mean, Raytheon needs to get its due, for God's sakes. But yeah, I mean, the problem in Germany is just, oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to segue back to what you're about to talk about, was like when the center is discredited, when it can no longer serve the needs of society, people will start to look for alternative answers. I think in 2016, it was, it was Trump. Trump billed himself as anti-establishment, even though he's, every part of the fucking disgusting bourgeoisie.
Drain the swamp. Remember that?
He campaigned on lock her up, locking up our political enemies, the enemies of the working class.
Right.
And so people respond to like right populism because there's not even like a nominally left left political party in the imperial core.
No.
And I guess in Germany too, like the contradictions extend to that, right into that sphere where there is no alternative. People are fed up and they flock to whoever is providing answers, even if they're the world's most obvious snake oil salesman.
Yeah. That's how you can tell a lot of the kind of like left liberal people who got lost since 2016.
We lost some,
because if the people who didn't like educate themselves beyond the sort of like establishment versus or anti-establishment versus elites or whatever like fucking way that they split up those like if you listen to Jimmy Dore, like he's still talking. I was just gonna bring up Jimmy
Dore. God damn it, yeah. He was awesome at one point. I was a fan. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. But like back then, when I didn't know as much, I was like, yeah, totally Jimmy Dore, right on. And then like you start learning and you realize like this guy's stuck where he is and he's making money just saying what he's saying. So like,
and then he started backpedaling a little, and that's once the pandemic happened, I was a Patreon supporter. That's how much I liked him. He could always attack from the left, the Democrats from the left, which was like an easy layup, and he made it funny, which was great about it. But now I
would be shocked. I would not be shocked to see Jimmy Dore like endorse or join the ACP.
No shit. Right, well, he's had Haas on. He does have Haas on his show.
Oh my God.
Yeah. This is where they end up. And that's what the other group the article mentioned, the BSW.
What did Haas have to say?
He was promoting a stupid rally in I think Michigan.
Vaccines are a Trotskyist conspiracy.
I know shit. Right. But like that's the thing about them. Like, and that's what the BSW, that whole thing where Jimmy Dore kind of people were like, they sound like they're left wing, but like Jimmy Dore also is now anti-immigrant. He's a big transphobe. He's a big homophobe now. And also, but like at least they're against the Ukrainian, NATO intervention and stuff. Yeah, right. Good. Like they always have a couple of things. He says he supports single payer health care. Okay, that's how the BSW work. They say that, but they on the social issues they want, and read his videos now. It's all dumb shit. Anti-vax, no one's talking about vaccines anymore, dude. Move on. Holy shit, dude. 4 years ago. It's been settled. All right.
There were no vaccine mandates anywhere in the US.
No.
Didn't happen.
Oh my God. That's
ivermectin didn't work. All right. Sorry. Ivermectin.
Every single Friday on an overpass coming back from work from Niagara Falls, there are these clowns with giant Canadian flags and a big banner that says "Mandate Freedom."
It's over.
You won. You got everything you wanted.
Right. No one cares anymore.
These people never complied with lockdowns anyway.
No shit.
And then we fucking stopped doing them because they were like storming government buildings and shit, and government just caved to the right. Well,
and we also got the vaccine too, which I mean, like it helped alleviate the fears a bit. Like, okay, at least we have a vaccine, so
yeah. Well, we got a vaccine for a coronavirus under Donald Trump. Like that is unprecedented.
Operation Warp Speed. They wanted
Operation Warp Speed, and like if it's if that's possible, then imagine what's possible. Like under a government that actually spends money to get things done, like healthcare or
high speed rail. Trains that work.
solar
Yes.
energy, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But like instead, it makes me like I literally like lose sleep over how mad this makes me. Is like instead we're just putting tariffs on Chinese imports of solar technology
And electric
cheap,
and they're much
cheap
better and
electric
cheaper
vehicles.
electric cars too,
Like,
which
right.
run
Wait,
fine.
I thought this was all about saving you know, the electric this is all about saving the automotive industry.
Right.
Yeah, they don't really. It's
The
all
American
just
one, though.
yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to add, just because counterpoint, what's her name? ContraPoints came up. I don't know if you guys have seen the that screenshot that keeps going around where
Yes.
she says these people, she's talking about the left, and she says they don't want power, they don't want victory, they just want to endlessly critique power. And
What?
it's really rich because like
What's
she's
Cuba?
rich, but also but also it's just it pisses me off so much because it's such a lack of understanding. It's like, so you want us to become Democrats who like play ball with the Democrats so that we win and have power to then what? Just do what they've already been doing. Like it just
Exactly.
doesn't make any sense. Like yeah, of course we're critiquing power. We don't have any. It's the whole project.
Yeah, it's the same shit when people are like, you know, the whole like, okay, say we should want, okay, like fascism. I know what fascism has a goal. They want to like eliminate certain ethnic groups. They want to commit war. They want to, you know, break labor strikes. I know what they stand for. That's their goals. I think it's bad. But when you ask like a right winger, well, what's the goal of Marxists? They just want to be evil and kill everybody. And it's like, well, what are their goals? They don't have any. Like we do, like seizing the means of production, strong militant, like we do have points to it. We want to take power. We want worker power. We want worker democracy. We want to nationalize the commanding heights of the economy. Those are real fucking things. Like, at least know what we're for. But no, we're just jealous that that we don't have a fucking, I don't know, a golden toilet. Like, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's like
great.
Doug always says, like you know, we have to understand that, like, you know, even if we can say like, okay, it's better that like Rashida Tlaib is in there instead of someone else, fine. But like ultimately, like the Democrats' victories are not our victories. It's, you know, their losses are not our losses. Like this is not a working class movement or party.
Right.
And that's the fundamental misunderstanding.
Yeah. I mean, they can't even like they can't even stop weapon sales to Israel. Like they won't even do a ceasefire. They're working around the clock endlessly, which I know will be our next point to talk about AOC, because AOC is going to talk about some politicians running for office who might be critical of the Democratic Party. And boy, and speaking of our quote unquote socialist friend AOC, yeah,
the socialist that Doug wholeheartedly endorses and can't stop talking
off camera,
about.
He's way different, man. That is
for Doug.
I know he's not here to defend himself, but like he's like he loves the squad. It's weird, but on camera, it sounds like he doesn't like her. But
uncritical support for Comrade AOC.
Crazy amount of support. You know, it's like, well, what else do you want us to do? And I'm like, all right, Doug, you're right. Just say it on air. It's like, oh no, I don't do that. This is what happens when you don't come on the show. We'll just start making up quotes. Oh, God help us. All right.
Technical difficulty. I just lost the window. Just give me 1 sec.
Okay, that's fine. But I mean, I remember like how she once said when she was first got elected that she annoys the Democratic Party with what she says. That was her in the early days. And let's see where she is, how it started.
Okay,
let's
so
see where it
the question. So AOC did one of those Instagram like things.
No, talking to the kids. All right, yeah.
AMA, yeah. All the kids are on Instagram these days.
That's right. Pokemon go to the polls, man. All right.
Oh God. Now it's I'm surprised no one said walk to a polling station.
I like the comment. This is Brad Summer. Brad Summer is on. Here we go. All right.
Could we serve cunt to the polls?
Oh God.
So this is from Brian Metzger on Instagram. Sorry, on Twitter. AOC criticizes Jill Stein on Instagram, saying her Green Party presidential campaigns are not serious and predatory. What does this person do to grow power? Okay, so the Greens, obviously, we don't endorse or support the Green Party on this block. I don't know about you guys,
Nah.
I don't think
That
they're
should be its own
that much
show. I mean,
better.
I think Jill Stein's good. I think she means well, but she's from Massachusetts originally. I've seen her for like 20 years, and they're not socialists.
This is AOC responding to a question. How do I tell my friends who are Jill Stein voters that they're wasting their time and effort?
Well, who wrote this? Hillary Clinton? All right.
But I have thoughts. I feel like I should save this for a live. I'm not coming for people who are thinking about this. I'll talk to you. What I have a problem with is the fact that if you are running for president, you are the de facto leader of your party. And first of all, trust me on this. I run as a third party candidate in New York. I'm also run as a working families party candidate in addition to running as a Democrat. Because trust me, I've been on record about my criticisms of a two-party system. So this is not about that. But you are the leader of your party. And if you run for years and years and years and years and years in a row, and your party has not grown, and you don't add city council seats, and you don't add down ballot candidates, and you don't add state electeds, that's bad leadership. And that to me is what's upsetting. Because if you have been your party's nominee for 12 years in a row, 4 years ago and 4 years before that, and 4 years before that, and you cannot grow your movement pretty much at all and can't pursue any successful strategy, and all you do is show up once every 4 years to speak to people who are justifiably pissed off, but you're just showing up once every 4 years to do that, you're not serious. You're not to me, it does not read as authentic. It reads as predatory. I'm sorry. I'm just saying it. Because as a person, I endorse working families party candidates. I endorse DSA candidates. I take risks, and I endorse even in primaries against Democrats when it's merited. What does this person do to grow power for the?
Okay, so yeah, Jill Stein's never gotten anyone elected, and it's because every 4 years we're told vote for the Democrats or the bad guys will win. Right? I think that's part of it. And so she's going after Jill Stein for not doing shit, apparently.
I think that on some level, like, she's not totally wrong about the Green Party. Like, I do think that my impression has always been, and I've had, like, back in Philly, I ran a political comedy show once a month, and one month we interviewed the Green Party chair of Pennsylvania, and we were so disappointed with it. It was really? Like, yeah, it was a lot of just like excuses and shit when we were like, why don't you have a website? Like, why does none of the fucking infrastructure work or whatever? And that does bother me, because like you go to the Green Party website and like you go to the candidate section, and they have like these overwritten blurbs that need like 2 more drafts at least, that like don't even tell, unless you click through and go to like a different page, it doesn't tell you who they are and what they're running for, like just shit like that, where I'm like, yeah, this party doesn't feel serious to me. But like, yeah, again, it is a little rich to say this from within the Democratic Party, who not only like the messaging stuff, like you're saying, Aaron, but like they will sue to keep the Green Party off ballots in certain states.
Bingo.
Like I'm sure they do this shit to like the Green Party, again, doesn't run a lot of like smaller candidates, but they do some. But I'm sure the Democratic Party fucks with them on those levels too. And like, yeah, it's like she mentioned the Working Families Party. They just won a handful of seats on the Philly city council because they saw an opening and they went for it. And now the Working Families Party is the main like minority party, and the Republicans are nowhere to be found in Philly. That's awesome. So like, yeah, Green Party, get your shit together and do something. But again, it's like, AOC, you're saying this from within the belly of the beast, and I'm glad you say some criticisms about the Democratic Party, but you're ultimately just throwing darts downward at someone who, doesn't have power.
Bingo. I want to piggyback on that point too. Yes, the Democratic Party has constantly sued the Green Party to keep them off the ballot. The Democratic Party, which is ironic because they don't really even have they didn't bother having primaries in North Carolina and Florida. Not very democratic in the way they go after them. They also I remember one of their candidates might have actually won in San Francisco or LA. They were going to do some strong showing. This is probably 2008, I want to say, around that time. They flew in Hillary Clinton, all the Clintons, they put millions of dollars to defeat the guy who was actually probably going to win, like in like a major city mayor thing. They will fight you tooth and nail. So they did that. And obviously, yes, the Green Party is not socialist. I'm not I don't support the Green Party or anything like that anymore. I used to, but the Green Party peaked around, you could say arguably in 2000 with Ralph Nader, or 2004, really. They're not going to be big, but if they're so unimportant, why attack them? Yeah. If the Democrats were quote unquote doing their job, the Green Party wouldn't need to exist. But they're the eternal opposition party to them, and it pisses them off that they exist. So yeah, I mean, another candidate that lost, I believe, 4 times. His name was Eugene Debs, Socialist Party of America. He was someone who was actually got jailed by a Democrat for speaking out against World War I. He won 1 million votes while in jail. So yeah, it doesn't matter. So fuck off. You can run as many. You can run as many times as you want. There's no law against it, AOC. And also the Working Families Party. Oh, dude, they're just they're like DSA. It's a fucking fake appendage of the Democratic Party. The Working Families Party and DSA are members of the Democratic Party. They don't bother really running against anyone else. That's a joke where she comes from. Her statement might have made sense in 1996 or 2000 when the Working Families try to do it. Much like, if you know anything about labor history in the 30s, if you read Teamster Rebellion, the Farmer Labor Party, how they were supposed to be independent of the Democrats. Yeah. If you look up the Minnesota Party now, the Minnesota where Tim Walz is from, it's called the Minnesota Democratic Labor Farmer Party. It's the same. They merged them into it. The AFL and the CIA were 2 separate things. CIA was more radical. What they do, the leaders sold out, merged, and then they neutered them. The Democrats are the graveyard for every progressive party. So they're the ones who correctly have been standing against them. So AOC, thank you for attacking them. Clearly, Jill Stein and the Green Party is doing right. If a sellout like you, who's going to be Nancy Pelosi in about 10 minutes. Oh my, I hate fake people who used to call themselves socialists. Don't use our name and then start shilling for the Democrats and attacking third parties.
Yeah. And the predatory thing gets me too, because it's
predatory.
Yeah, because like again, on one level I understand. It's like, okay, what, like you're trying to get money from people and like nothing's coming of it. Fine, but like AOC does this thing where she always like she has these critiques that always kind of like flow into like what do you call it? Like liberal kind of like not identity politics, but that sort of liberal, like this is predatory, this is problematic, this is like, abusive, whatever. And it's like
this is microaggression.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
This is violence.
I mean, it's always like, right. And it's always, it just strikes me as very like you just can't help but lib out.
Well, that's a tough follow. I don't have much else to say after that. But Jill Stein has a response.
There we go. Let's see. Okay, because I did like what she had to say.
You're just showing up once every 4 years to do that. You're not serious. You're not to me. It does not read as authentic. It reads
You're not
as
authentic,
predatory.
you sell out.
Jill here. I'm about to board, but very quickly, I just wanted to thank AOC Pelosi so very much for her very authentic concern about growing green power. Clearly, AOC is the attack dog du jour, and the Democrats are running scared, and they should be, because who wants to support a genocide? Who wants to vote for a genocide? And if there's anything that's predatory here, it's saying that your candidate is working tirelessly for a ceasefire, and actually they are actively funding and arming genocide.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just bodies are right there. And I just remember the point I was going to make too. It's also awfully rich, like AOC, who was telling everyone that forcing Joe Biden out and nominating someone else at this point in the game would be political suicide 48 hours before Biden drops out, and then everyone acts like it never fucking happened.
That was a nightmare.
Right. Pelosi was to her left.
Don't talk to us about being unserious when you fought tooth and nail to keep Biden as the candidate.
Yeah. No, clown show. Seriously, exactly. Good political instinct. You call yourself a socialist. You're in the Democratic Party. You couldn't even speak out against Genocide Joe when he was participating in one of the worst crimes of humanity in the 21st century. And now you're attacking Jill. Anything you say, just do the opposite. Like I say that with Republicans, but every time AOC is saying anything, do the opposite. Like you have nothing to say about the genocide, do you, AOC? Oh, working tirelessly. Stop the weapons.
That was
the ceasefire is over. The whole debate about having a ceasefire, that was months ago. No, stopping the weaponry. Israel does not want a ceasefire. They want their genocide.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, AOC did an interview after that speech she gave at the DNC, where she was like talking completely differently about it. She was talking to some activist and she was like, yeah, no, I don't even remember what she said, but it was like at least a little more honest and about how like, yeah, not enough's being done and Yahoo this and that. And it's like, well, yeah, but you didn't fucking say that on the stage, did you? Because they wouldn't let you up there otherwise. But great. Now you did ContraPoints this fucking thing and you went on stage and just said what all the rest of them were saying. Great. Power and victory for all.
Yeah. Is she saying DSA is some outside third party? Like, in their own universe, do they believe this shit? Like, I really, come on, really? You're a wing within the imperialist party. All right. Yeah. Look at where you've become. Does she even support single payer healthcare anymore? Is that off the? I mean, she probably already gave it up, much like Kamala Harris gave up on single payer healthcare too.
I think nominally she'll still mention it sometimes, but yeah, it's you know.
They'll just say we want to lower prescription drug prices. They'll just say that, pat themselves on the back, and go, "Look, see, there we do." I know, pathetic, but what do you expect from AOC? So, like I said, you don't change the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party changes you. AOC is living proof of that. She no longer quote unquote annoys anyone in the Democratic Party. And I like what Jill Stein said. She's the attack dog du jour. This is who they have today. I think it was probably Liz Warren at one point who might attack the left, but here we are. So masterful gambit, Democrats. You got AOC to be the new attack dog you have. Ugh. All right. Anyway, I think we got that wrapped up. So Aaron, Israel.
Okay, now on to
good or bad.
Now on to the main event.
Sound effect, ding, ding, ding. Can we do let's get ready to rumble? Because that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah. The one thing that we emphasize out on here, and something that our comrades need to bear in mind, is never ever stop talking about Gaza. We do not want to forget about Gaza. Gaza is always on my mind and in our hearts. As we witness a genocide, basically like in real time, we are witnessing an extermination of people.
Yeah. Yep. This
is a letter. This is an open letter addressed to the president, the VP, and the First Lady, signed by 45 American physicians and nurses about what they saw while working in Gaza. And so I'll just read like the bolded parts here. It is likely the death toll from this conflict is already greater than 92,000, an astonishing 4.2% of Gaza's population. They're saying that it could be as high as like 400,000.
Yeah.
People are
dead.
They
bombed all the hospitals. They can't count them.
Certainly. Yeah, because the people that do the counting have all been killed, right? Yeah. And all the journalists on the ground have all been killed, and their families have been killed. So no real numbers. Well, not until the dust settles are we actually going to know the real numbers.
Totally not fascist or imperialist. Yeah, no.
With only marginal exceptions, everyone in Gaza is sick, injured, or both. And this includes every national aid worker, every international volunteer, and probably every Israeli hostage, every man, woman, and child. I've seen ambulances getting blocked by bulldozers.
The World Kitchen convoy blown up with them clearly marked vehicles, I might add.
UNRWA vehicles full of bullet holes. Like they're like UN is pulling out, like UN aid workers are pulling out of Gaza, like as we speak, right?
Right.
So in Gaza, we watch malnourished new mothers feed their underweight newborns infant formula made with poisonous water. We can never forget the world abandoned these innocent women and babies. Israel's continued repeated displacement of the malnourished and sick population of Gaza, half of whom are children, to areas with no running water or even toilets available, is absolutely shocking. Most of them are young children. Every one of us on a daily basis treated preteen children who are shot in the head and chest. Every one of us on a daily basis. Yeah. President Dr. Biden, we wish you could see the nightmares that plague so many of us since we have returned. Dreams of children maimed and mutilated by our weapons, and their inconsolable mothers begging us to save them. We wish you could hear the cries and screams of our consciousness will not let us forget. We cannot believe that anyone would continue arming the country that is deliberately killing these children after seeing what we have seen. The pregnant women we treated were particularly malnourished. Those of us who worked with pregnant women regularly saw stillbirths and maternal deaths that were easily preventable in any third world healthcare system. Women underwent C-sections without anesthesia and were given nothing but Tylenol afterwards because no other pain meds were available. Israel's destroyed more than half of Gaza's healthcare resources and has killed 1 out of every 40 healthcare workers in Gaza. At the same time, healthcare needs have increased massively from the lethal combination of military, violence, malnutrition, and disease. These observations and the publicly available material detailed in the appendix leads us to believe that the death toll from this conflict is many times higher than what is reported by the Gaza Ministry of Health. We also believe this is probative evidence of widespread violations of American laws governing the use of American weapons abroad and of international humanitarian law. We cannot forget the scenes of unbearable cruelty directed at women and children that we witnessed ourselves. We quickly learned our Palestinian healthcare colleagues were among the most traumatized people in Gaza. They were aware of their work as healthcare work providers had marked them as targets for Israel. And this letter, it just goes on.
I want to kill myself.
Okay, that's
fucking Christ.
So 45 physicians, nurses, doctors, people, Americans on the ground, who have like every incentive, I guess, under the American system to lie about this, and they can't because they're so haunted by this. And so what did we see? What's the Israeli proletariat up to this week, right?
Yeah, that was heavy. Jesus God.
So,
all right.
6 Israeli hostages were found dead. We know that they were alive 48 to 72 hours prior to the IDF finding them. They had multiple gunshot wounds in the chest and the head. So
it's not like Israel kills its own hostages. That's never happened multiple times.
Yeah, it's
like someone waving a white flag, walking towards them.
Yeah, what's that called again?
Cannibal doctrine.
It rhymes with the blamable blurective. Israel, we know for a fact Israel has a policy of shooting their own hostages to prevent them being taken for leverage. We know that they have bombed their own hostages. We know that, on October 7th, we know that tank crews were ordered to fire into houses that they weren't even sure were evacuated of civilians. Like, they don't care.
Right. They had Apache helicopters firing into kibbutzes.
They were
wildly.
Oh my God, it was insane. And I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked one bit if it came out that the majority of deaths that occurred on October 7th were at the hands of the IDF, firing indiscriminately at their own people.
Yeah.
Would not be shocking whatsoever.
No, they're a very inexperienced, scared army that hides in tanks and blows shit up. Yeah, that's what they do.
So there's a lot of tensions boiling up in Israel over this war. There's a lot of anger directed correctly towards Netanyahu, who keeps perpetuating this genocide. Not negotiating a ceasefire per se, but now the Israeli proletariat are demanding a ceasefire with Hamas because of their hostages are dying. It remains unclear if they were killed by Hamas or if they're killed in the crossfire. Either way, the deaths of these hostages is squarely on the lap of Netanyahu and his fascist apartheid regime. But I want you to be very clear, make no mistake, this anger and mass action by the Israeli labor unions is in no way expressing even a modicum of solidarity with the Palestinian liberation movement. Right?
No.
As the RCP article notes, this is a very peculiar strike. It is a call for workers to use their industrial muscle to achieve political aims, in this case, bringing about a hostage deal. These aims are also supported for their own reasons by a large section of the ruling class. In fact, both the Business Forum and the Manufacturers Association, representing the capitalists, particularly those in the crucial high-tech sector, publicly came out in support of the strike. So what we have here is the same cross-class alliance behind the protests against Netanyahu over the judicial reform at the beginning of 2023. We are witnessing the combination of a mass movement from below, led by the relatives of the hostages, with a massive crisis in the ruling class and the state apparatus from above. The actions of Netanyahu are mainly motivated by his desire to cling to power and prevent court action against himself. End quote. So this is part of that discussion this has been really on my mind a lot, and I don't see a lot of this discussed on the left, especially not to say nothing of like the liberal left, but even the Marxist left doesn't really discuss this very much.
There's been debates.
Over the class nature of the Israeli proletariat, right? The RCP and many other Marxist organizations, they call for the split of the nation of Israel along class lines to overthrow not only Netanyahu, but as part of a revolution in the entire region. The only problem is I'm not entirely convinced that Israeli society can be split along class lines. Their national interests have historically always taken priority. Why is this? For more, we turn to an article from the International Socialist Review by Daphne Tier, in which we draw upon the writings of Matzpen, an anti-Zionist Israeli socialist newspaper. I think it was big in like the 50s and 60s. So the name of the article is What is Wrong with the Israeli Working Class? I will post it in the show notes if you'd like to read it yourself. It's very good. Definitely, I think this discussion asks some important questions. Personally, I still have a lot to read and a lot to learn. I'm not married to these ideas, but I really, really think this is something worth talking about. When we talk about like Lenin's labor aristocracy ideas and how like some on the left, like Charlie Post, a Marxist on I forget what organization he's with, but he's a sociologist who is skeptical of the idea of a labor aristocracy. Settler colonialism is another model that is used to explain a lot of this behavior. I'm not entirely convinced by that either, but there is some interesting studies that we're going to get into. So I've gotten flack for suggesting that suggesting that the Israeli proletariat is incapable of revolution. I've been called a non-Marxist, but all the historical evidence and the current mood suggests the Israeli working class is not capable of breaking with Zionism and is obviously a clear-cut case of settler colonialism in which the ruling class and its workers directly benefit from the oppression and displacement and extermination of Palestinians with landed property provided and enforced by the state to Israeli workers and settlers. I have gotten flack for this position, but it's not hard to see why. Many organizations on the left believe the Israeli proletariat can be won over to revolutionary perspectives and class solidarity with Arab workers. But this position that I'm exploring stems from the anti-Zionist Israeli socialist newspaper Matzpen, and they dealt with this question decades ago. The writers argued that the Israeli working class had a vested economic interest in precisely the same policies that weaken workers in other countries. A material reality led Jewish workers to racist conclusions, breaking class solidarity with Palestinian workers. Now, before you jump down my throat and tell me to read Settlers, I'd like to make the case that
a good book. I heard Doug loves it.
We'll have a whole episode on that, but I'd like to make the case that Israeli settler colonialism presents a unique form of oppression and relationship to the land that differs from, say, the white proletariat in the United States and Europe, right? So since its inception after World War II, the state of Israel depended on Western subsidies for their high standards of living, which heavily influenced their ideology and their role in upholding Western imperialism. But today, this is no longer the case, except for heavy military funding. Even Israeli youth today, by and large, continue to enlist in the IDF, and they remain unconvinced by anti-Zionist sentiment. In fact, the experience of 80 years does not contain a single example of Israeli workers being mobilized on material or trade union issues to challenge the Israeli regime itself. It is impossible to mobilize even a minority of the proletariat in this way. On the contrary, Israeli workers nearly always put their national loyalties before their class loyalties. This may change in the future, but this does not remove the need for us to analyze why it has been so. Remember, these movements against Netanyahu have nothing to do with the plight of Palestinians, but rather the ousting of the prime minister instead over his mishandling, resulting in dead hostages. The Matzpen authors argue that Israel is a unique settler colonial project, and I think they make an interesting case here. The United States was founded on the displacement and slaughter of indigenous people like Israel, but was also built by coerced indentured servitude and slave labor. Some sociologists refer to this as the ethnic plantation model. By contrast, Israeli settler colonial project by 1904 rejected the ethnic plantation model and emphasized the building of strong Jews, quote unquote, who worked the land themselves. This form of pure settlement depended on a laboring class that rejected indigenous or imported slave labor. The incentive then would be for this laboring class to have a stake in the expanded settlement, right? Does that make sense so far? There were not a lot of natural resources for corporate plunder like in the US that resulted in the exploitation of workers. For example, like the coal mines in Appalachia. In this case,
diamond mines in South Africa.
Yeah,
talk about other colonial states.
Exactly. In this case, primitive accumulation benefited the Israeli workers directly. The perpetrators of the ethnic cleansing after the founding of the nation of Israel came from the left wing of the labor movement. So we're getting into the Nakba now. So with direct support from the Soviet Union, it was argued.
Thanks, Stalin.
Yeah, thank you, Stalin, for arming the Nakba.
Go, Stalin. Nice going, dummy.
it was argued that the founding of a Jewish state would deal a blow to the Arab militaries and their British backers. The theft of Palestinian land was done not by the bourgeoisie, but by state and labor bureaucracy. The land was then distributed to Israel's ever-increasing population, an area worth $5 billion US in today's money. This primitive accumulation worked on by the Israeli settlers themselves, combined with American investment and West German reparations, resulted in Israel being financed by imperialism without being exploited by it. And this is what makes Israel a unique settler colonial project. So I personally, I don't speak for the podcast. This is my own opinion that Israel is not capable of socialist revolution, class consciousness. And frankly, I don't know if this is a hot take. This is a country that needs to be militarily defeated from the outside as part of a broad Arab Spring and socialist revolution in the region, combined with the overthrow of the Egyptian and Jordanian U.S. puppet regimes, in addition to the Iranian ruling class. I genuinely don't know if this is possible, given the looming threat of nuclear weapons. I'm convinced if it wasn't for the potential fallout, Israel would have nuked Gaza already. And if you think I'm kidding, have a listen to the podcast, Two Nice Jewish Boys, to see what they think.
So I would, if you gave me a button to just erase Gaza, every single living being in Gaza would no longer be living tomorrow, I would press it in a second.
Wow.
That's just, I think most Israelis,
if that's agree. The choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, even if it's not like right now.
Yeah, no.
I would press it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, same with the territories.
I would press it right now.
Mm-hmm.
No choice.
Oh,
no.
And the West Bank.
Dawn is safe at home. God willing. I don't know. I haven't spoken to her in like an hour.
No, I'm saying for the chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would press it right now. Give me that button and press it right now.
There you go.
And I think most Israelis would.
Yeah. Most.
These people are fucking nuts.
This is Israel's longest running English podcast, Two Nice Jewish Boys, talking about how if given the chance to wipe out every single Palestinian in the West Bank and Gaza, they would press it in a second. They would not hesitate.
That's fucked.
And they say most Israelis would too.
Like, I mean,
I know the word fascist gets tossed around a lot.
It
but
does.
Like, come on, man.
Like this time, when you're talking about a button to kill women, and it's not like I want to destroy Hamas. I get that. All right, if you're okay, or maybe I want to get rid of the Fatwa Party, or I want to get rid of the Palestinian Authority. But you're talking about everyone. That's fucked up, dude. That's really fucked up. And I mean, those polls that I think was it like 65% of Israelis don't think the war's going hard enough. The majority think it should be going on, and only like 4% are like, this needs to stop. So I hear that.
Died like a dog. You died like a coward.
Yeah. It's just, I can't fucking believe how bad Israeli society is with the situation right now. But let me ask you this, Aaron. So one stance that comes out, this is from the CWI, or Independent Socialist Group, who we've had on the show. If you want to listen in, there's a previous episode of the podcast. What's your take on a two-state socialist solution where this would be an Israeli socialist state and a Palestinian social state working together? Do you think that could be a viable solution in your opinion?
In my opinion, any capitulation to Zionism in any way, it should be avoided. I think there's one country called Palestine, and you can stay or you can go. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I think why
go back to your second home in Brooklyn, in Long Island, in Germany, in Toronto.
Yeah, why have two states if we're talking about socialism and equality?
Yeah.
Besides, we're communists. We don't even believe in states.
Right.
Well, you have to have a temporary worker state. I mean, that does have to exist. So
there are. So I've been reading a lot of theory on permanent revolution. There's this book. It's the Politics of Combined and Uneven Development.
That's a good one.
The Theory of Permanent Evolution by Michael Lowy. Very, very good book so far. Unfortunately, I've been so tired. I can't read more than like 3 pages a day because then I fall asleep.
It's tough. I know. I've been reading the classics. Yeah.
Understanding permanent revolution and applying it to something like Palestine and Hamas. I've jotted down a few thoughts that I've had on that as well, and and the national question, right? So can the next part of this talk is, can Hamas liberate Palestine? So we've already talked about, like, okay, military defeat of Israel, probably not possible with the presence of nukes. So what are our other options? Can Hamas liberate Palestine in the event of an extraordinary, unlikely victory, attaining national liberation under Hamas? This would only bring ultra-conservative, reactionary leadership with no promise of liberation for the Palestinian working class, putting them under the thumb of another oppressive regime, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. The
Bring back the
PFLP is pretty
PFLP.
small. Yeah.
So Hamas is incapable of carrying out the requirements for a single democratic Palestinian state with equal rights across the board. Their ultimate goal is like an Islamic state similar to that of Iran. A popular front with the DFLP and PFLP, I think that would be just as unlikely in victory as popular fronts, as you know.
Popular Front's not great. Ask France.
Where the Marxist revolutionary parties ally with and tail the anti-imperialist National Bourgeois Party. They don't have a good history, as they typically end in the slaughter of communists.
Or at the very least, the program that always is implemented is the liberal plan. It's never like, well, we're gonna go up. Yeah, doesn't really work that way.
Very, very interesting point, because I will get to that. It's what we saw. The betrayal of the communists, what we saw in China under Chiang Kai-shek in the failed revolution of 1927.
Did we read that together?
It's in turn what we saw in Iran with China and Russia's support for the anti-imperialist Shah regime. And they turned around and slaughtered tens of thousands of communists and installed an Islamic state instead of a bourgeois revolution. So I think it would be a mistake to view Hamas as a revolutionary force. And frankly, I'm not even sure anyone does either. They're not exactly the Red Army, which ensured protection of the Russian and Chinese revolutions from counter-revolution and imperialism. These communist movements subordinated themselves to the bourgeois nationalist movements, and they did not prepare for a class-independent program. And there's an article from the Left Voice on the national question in Palestine. They put it more succinctly. The bourgeois nationalist currents in Palestine, religious or otherwise, currently represent the military leadership of the struggle and are characterized by their historical maneuvers and last-ditch compromises. Yet, the only way to prepare for confronting these bourgeois nationalist currents is precisely by unconditionally positioning oneself in the military camp of the resistance, not to support its leadership. So what they're saying
is a firebrand stance, I think. We support
the fight against Israeli imperialism, but we don't necessarily support the leadership of Hamas.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we have to contest their influence and defend a revolutionary strategy that alone can solve the national question by forming a faction that defends a revolutionary program and strategy with complete class independence, end quote. And here is Trotsky, the old man himself, defending the need to ally with the national bourgeois movement. We never denied it was the duty of the Communist Party to participate in the war of the bourgeoisie and petty bourgeoisie of the South against the generals of the North. He's talking about China, against agents of foreign imperialism. We never denied the necessity of a military bloc between the CP and the Kuomintang. On the contrary, we were the first to propose it. We demanded, however, that the CP maintain its entire political and organizational independence. That is, that during the Civil War against the internal agents of imperialism, as in the National War against foreign imperialism, the working class, while remaining on the front lines of the military struggle, prepare the political overthrow of the bourgeoisie, end quote. So another major problem is the organization of Palestinians and their relationship to Zionist labor. Okay, so yes, we do support the military struggle against Israel and Zionist imperialism, but isn't there a more peaceful option? Surely. So.
Well, there's been a siege for a while since they had elections, and didn't like what they got in.
Why can't they just go on strike and have peaceful demonstrations and stuff? So what is the Palestinian?
Of the 80s? Yeah.
So we've already sort of gone over the Palestinian and relationship to Zionist labor. Israelis, by and large, do not compete with Palestinians for jobs. The few work permits granted to Gazans were for menial, low-wage, backbreaking jobs, and even those have all since been canceled in the wake of October 7th. So this means Palestinians have no meaningful way of withholding their labor in the form of a general strike that might affect the Zionist regime. And as you can see, their options of resistance grow thin, making events like October 7th an inevitable reality. You can only cage people for so long before they fight back. Unfortunately, a peaceful option is looking less and less likely by the day as Palestinians are summarily starved, executed, and forced to watch their children perish in a genocide. And not only that, it's happening in 4K resolution in real time on every single person on Earth on their fucking phones, and still nothing is being done about it.
Yep. That's
a
an excellent point.
genuine socialist Palestine is only possible within a socialist federation of the Middle East with national rights for Jews within Palestine who choose to break with Zionism, in addition to, and this is something a lot of leftists org leave out, in addition to complete unconditional right of return for all exiled Palestinians across the world.
Yeah. No.
So,
hey, well said. Yeah.
Just to sum up, am I saying the Hamas is equivalent to the oppressive state of Israel? Because I've seen some moronic takes where it's like, neither Hamas nor Tel Aviv, right? Like neither the Palestinian or Israeli bourgeoisie. Like, no, these are not the same things. Clearly,
no.
Anyone who dares equivocate the two are missing the primary contradiction that exists, and that's Israeli dominance over Palestinians. As Trotsky writes. Again, anti-imperialism is the key to national liberation. His example, he is really interesting, hypothetical. Like, what if British imperialism went to war with a fascist Brazil, right?
Oh yeah, this example, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Despite what the extremely dumb Stalinists say about us, we do not share the politics of fascism, obviously.
Oh. Hand in glove with Hitler. I thought Trotsky was okay.
Trotsky was a Hitler, except of course Trotsky was a Hitler agent and also an agent of Japan. He was a very busy guy while being exiled.
Also in the FBI too. So all these things. He was a busy man. Very angry about why things went down. I guess.
So, but what we do support is anti-imperialism. And in this case, we would support the Brazilian nation against British imperialism, right? Because a British victory would result in the expansion of British imperialism, but a defeat would actually rally the Brazilian people to overthrow fascism. If the fight against imperialism would only unify the working class, forming a mass base, which would be a threat to a fascist government at the same time. And so this is what we hope for the liberation of the Palestinian people. Our solidarity is with them, and however they choose to resist their oppressors is far from us to judge from our comfy homes, right? Every legal and illegal avenue of resistance and change has been tried. We get all too often, so how come they don't protest peacefully crap, forgetting the 2018 March of Return in which 200 Gazans were shot dead. Check out the
Thousands
Gaza Fights
more crippled at the kneecap too. Yeah.
Check out the Gaza Fights for Freedom documentary. Very, very good.
Yeah. All right.
So perhaps this is a moot point, since ultimately what matters is how the Palestinians themselves choose to organize their own state in the event that Zionism is smashed. Will it be one state, two state, socialist state as part of a federation of the Middle East, or will they be completely slaughtered and erased as the world watches? I don't know. We don't have our own Palantirs, right, to see where the world is headed. But that last option of total annihilation is not an option we can afford. And as Lenin reminds us, the main enemy is at home. A revolution in the United States would also smash Zionism. It would entail a complete withdrawal of arms and funding and would lead to a collapse in the Zionist capability of occupying Palestine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. One thing that comes to mind is Gaddafi was, I don't know how much of a dedicated socialist he was, but he was sort of, of the mind to unite Africa and the Middle East. He wanted to, have I know there is an African Union, but he wanted to empower the African Union, and he introduced a lot of good reforms in Libya. And so of course the US killed him.
And now there's open slave markets in Libya. There, I'm not the biggest Gaddafi fan, but what came after Gaddafi was far, far, far worse. After NATO, our great allies in NATO bombed the shit out of them, killed thousands of people, and the return, I have to say it again, open air slave markets in Libya. So yeah, way to go. But
thank you, awesome. You, Hillary Clinton. Thank you for that.
There you go.
We saw he died.
There, you beat me to it. Damn. Yeah. Yep. All right. So
he died like a dog.
A dog. Yeah. So that'll be it for the podcast. So thank you. This was a great show. Next week we will have Firebrand will bring on its person wrote an article. His name is Mark. Let me get the name of the article. It's Aaron pointed this one out, and it's a banger of hold on, let me see. I guess the thing we can put up on screen here, but what was it? Why socialists don't vote for our enemies. So this was a great one. We both liked it. We reached out to the writer. He'll be coming on next week. big fan of. They've been on this podcast before. We had 2 people from Denver Communists come on. That was a fun show with those 2 guys. So hopefully we'll have them on again. I liked having them on. But so yeah, next week we'll be discussing that. Doug and Matt should both be on next week as well. And yeah. So if you want to listen to us, please check out our pod. We're on Facebook, Left Opposition Podcast. If you want to donate on Patreon, if you really enjoyed this article, the show, please donate. We love you. We will give you a shout out. We'll ask for permission first, but thank you to our Patreon supporters. You make the show possible. Oddly enough, corporate advertisers are banging down the doors trying to get on a communist podcast. I know that sounds weird. I'm not making this up, but they are begging us. Elon Musk, Russia Today, all these people want to give us loads of money, and we're not taking it because we're not sacrificing our journalistic integrity for anything less than $100,000. So, Tim Pool, you're on notice.
Tenet Media, if you're listening, we are absolutely open to bribes, and I will spew any right-wing crap you want.
Whatever you want us to say.
$100,000 per episode.
That's fine. We'll do 5 episodes a day. Whatever you want from us, Tenet, you get it. But everyone else, take a hike, bozo. We're not interested. But Tenet Media, I know you go through some legal troubles. We'll defend you. We'll say whatever you want. That's fine. Trotsky would defend you. That's a real quote. Go with it. I don't care.
Yeah, he was a fascist collaborator, right? So
yeah, we're just bullshitting. We all know it's true. Come on, Doug loves Grover Fur. He talks about it too. Like we'll do anything for a few bucks, whatever you want. So there you go. Yeah, we're on Threads. Follow us there. So also the Twitch stream. You're already on it if you're listening to. So Marxist Archaeologist. That is Aaron's stream. So if you're listening to it, you want to get on and harass us. That's fine. Whatever. We read the comments. We get sad. So whatever you want to do, say it. All right.
So
good.
As bleak as the world is, there is a student intifada rising as classes resume.
That's just a cool shirt. I like her getup, by the way. Drip, as the kids say.
If you think the student protests over the summer were intense, just wait till what's coming in the fall. I think the students are really going to step up on this one.
Go
and
kids!
So, yeah. So I want to end on a high note of one of the student protesters at Columbia University 3 days ago, first day of classes. Student organizations called an action in solidarity with Palestine. The NYPD has already begun brutally repressing students. Workers can unite with students by deploying working class methods like strikes against repression. And so I will give the last word to this student comrade on campus.
My name is Kripa, and I'm here today as a member of Red Voice, the Red Snare, which is our protest job line, and as a student here at Columbia University. We're here today on the first day of classes to announce the attacks on student protesters, the presence of cops on our campus, and the refusal to divest, remaining complicit in the funding of the genocide of Palestinians. This comes amidst a wave of attacks on student protests at universities from the UCs and the Cal State system in California, enacting this zero tolerance policy towards encampments, to George Washington University suspending Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace on their campuses. Administrators need to repress the student movement at all costs to preserve their funding from Zionist donors. President Benushevich has resigned, but universities under capitalism are still organized ideologically, politically, and materially to protect the interests and maintain the interests of the capitalist class. And the new president, Katrina Armstrong, is going to continue business as usual. As students, we will not tolerate these attacks on our democratic rights to protest and the complicity of our university in funding the genocide of Palestinians.
Yeah, go kids! All right. Something upbeat, so that makes me feel good for the future.
I hadn't listened to the audio of that. I was kind of hoping the audio would be a little better.
Yeah, I know it's okay.
It's hard to talk through a mask and also with like a drum circle going on in the background.
Goddamn drum circles.
Anyway,
all right.
Thank you, everybody. I think we'll call it here.
All right, everyone. Thank you. Keep up the fight. Keep up the struggle. We'll see you next week.
Hell yeah.